Here.
Squire Muller,
Present.
Squire Tracy,
Here.
Squire Booth, Squire Moore,
Here.
Judge Wells.
Here. Okay, we're going to, this is a budget work session. We're going to start with the coroner, then road, then jail, planning and zoning, maintenance, the judge's office, the county attorney. We're going to go in the order of reverse order again, starting with Squire Moore, Booth, Tracy, Muller, Blackburn, Sebastian, and then back around. So raise your hand, give me a nod that you have a question or don't have a question when it comes your time. So we have Will Harrod here, Will's here, and to talk with you about the coroner's budget. Will Harrod, you're on, and you can talk with the magistrates. Susan, are you on the line? Susan?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Susan. By the way, Andrew, if you would, before we get started, excuse me, Will, give me, let's go through a roll call of who's on other than the magistrates and Will Harrod, whom we see. Who else is on? We've got Susan, who else? Andrew.
The chief is with us, Robert Hewitt, Charlie Lewis, Betty Jo Ridenhour, the assistant chief, Ann Northcutt, Brittany, John Mitchell, Stephen Hawkins-Smith, Jailer Banta.
Okay, let me go back over the names. Susan, Chief, Charlie, John, Betty Jo, Stephen, Jake, Brittany, and who else? Oh, Ann. Okay.
Ann's with us.
Okay. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in addition to Will. Is that correct?
17. We have 20 people here, Judge. We have 20 people here with us.
Okay. All right. So let's begin. Susan, instead of going with Will first, Susan, present what we're looking at, what we had in 2020 and what we're looking at in 2021 for the coroner's office. And then we'll open it up to Will.
Andrew, can I share this file?
Just a second, let me. All right, you should be able to share your desktop now.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Susan.
Yes, sir.
Would you please go over it, Susan?
Sure. First of all, the draft working in progress appropriation sheet that has been distributed shows last year's budget and then a draft for 2021 based on, well, not last year, but the current year's budget. And it's intended just to be a continuation budget, and the numbers would be the same for now for discussion purposes with some exceptions. The coroner received this as well. The document also has the actual amount that was spent at the point that this document was started. As you know, the actual expenditures will be changing through the end of the year, and you should have an updated expense report to show that. But the column for the budget increase or decrease should be telling as to whether or not we were making any changes to the budget. So that's what the coroner was presented with, and we can take it from there if there's going to be any reductions.
Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Rick. I didn't want to take you by surprise.
Okay, thanks, Rick. We're in the coroner's budget. Okay, Will Harrod, you're on.
Good morning, Court. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Very well. First, I'd like to say I appreciate you moving the schedule around a little bit for me today. Unfortunately, I have 2 or 3 cases that are kind of pressing some things. So I appreciate you working with me on moving the schedule a little bit. So a couple of things before I get started. I'd like to take a moment to express my sincere condolences to you, Squire Sebastian, for the recent loss of your father. You know, I know this is a difficult time. I hope you and your family were able to find some comfort and peace during this time. So I wanted to express that to you. I know that Marty's not here, but I'm glad to hear that, you know, Marty's recovering. She's home. If she's listening, I'm glad that she's doing much better. To the entire court, I want to thank you for your continued hard work and commitments. I know this hasn't been easy for you guys as well, and or your families. You know, we're living in uncertain and strange times right now. With that being said, and it brings us to budget discussion. These are, you know, I understand what's going to happen. I know things are tight. And listen, I get it. I'm in business myself, so things are really crunch time. We've got a lot of uncertainties out there. The budget that I presented is basically a continuation. I was asked to do a continuation 2 to 3 weeks ago. That's what I have submitted. And with the continuation, I would like to address a few other things that I may or may not be able to obtain, but at some point I would like to address those things. If you have any questions, I want you to feel free to ask me. The other thing is the budget that I have submitted this year is again a continuation, but again last year we did this is with a 3% reduction with last year. So that's what the numbers you're looking at reflect. Does anybody have any questions in particular?
Okay, if you hold on, let's go through the process. Will, Squire Moore?
Yes.
No, it looks okay to me at the moment. Doing maintenance, are you gonna be able to save some on this year?
Well, with the price of fuel being down, of course, we're trying to save all we can. With the maintenance side of things, it's a little bit difficult. We have a 2004 Ford tank that's in the shop now. With respect to that, I submitted a PO for a certain amount to fix that vehicle. And surprisingly, it came back, for an example, we thought it would be $700 and some odd dollars, and now they're telling us it's going to be $1,800. So, you know, the projections are a little bit difficult for me because I have an older vehicle in my rolling stock, so it makes it a little bit difficult to project in that line item.
Yeah. Okay, and you don't know what gas is going to do next year either, I understand. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Squire Tracy?
Good morning. Yeah, a couple questions. Would you mind to kind of go over how your day-to-day approach has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes. Our day-to-day operations, several weeks ago, I sat down with staff and verbally communicated that we were going to have to watch, the spending. I kind of gave the staff a heads up on that, and I had to have a conversation with each of the deputies to talk about that we have to treat each of these cases that we're working as if they have COVID. As we've been taught through social media, CDC, different avenues, false negative, even though an individual's been tested, false negatives are 15% of the testing. They come back incorrect. So we are having to treat every case as if each individual is infected by this disease. So.
Okay, I guess with that being said, do you have an adequate amount of equipment or supplies on hand?
No, we do not. Matter of fact, we've requested some POs for personal protective equipment that we've had to turn back in because it's just not out there. This is a problem nationwide, statewide. The PPE is just not there. So, with this pandemic, we're having to use more PPE than necessary. More gloves, more masks, and those types of things.
Okay. Have you reached out to anyone? Have you spoken to anyone locally? I know there's several that call and give us updates in regards, and I think Squire Blackburn's work may have even turned in some masks. Have you reached out to anyone in regards to needing supplies to make them aware?
I have not had any conversations with anyone in particular, except maybe early on. I think there was a meeting on COVID specific, and I think the judge and the emergency management director, Tommy Russell, were in that meeting, and I think we were asked at that time about some PPE. That's really the only conversations that I had with anybody about additional, needing anything additional.
Okay. Thank you, but I guess this will be my last one. In regards to conversations, has anybody touched base with you or discussed how you should handle or approach these cases if one should arise?
Not at the state level, no. We're following CDC guidelines for postmortem. We are talking to, there are some instructions from the funeral side of it, but that doesn't always go hand in hand with the coroner side of it. But anyway, we have not had any instruction. We're actually looking for some guidance on how to, move forward and how we can obtain some PPE potentially. We're trying to, save all we can. We're using masks multiple times, at least 2 to 3 times per case, and, trying to conserve there. I hope that answers your question, Squire.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all, Squire Tracy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Tamara just texted you Tommy Russell's number to get you in touch with the right people to get you more, to try to get you more PPEs if you need it. So you've got his number. I thought you already had it, but if you don't, your number has been sent to you to give him a holler, and he'll connect you and work with the health department and anybody else to try to get you some of your equipment that you needed. Squire.
Judge, I appreciate that.
Okay, Squire Muller.
Yes, thank you, Will. Just one quick question. What actually is your line item for, office equipment? What do you foresee for the next budget year that you'll need for that?
For office equipment, probably we're looking at body bags, we're looking at gloves, masks, things of that nature, whatever we can use, whatever we can purchase potentially. So, again, we were able to purchase a small amount early, but we just were unsuccessful a couple of times purchasing things through that line item.
Okay, do you think on this year, it looks like, you had 12,500 and you used roughly 8,500. Do you think with the virus going on that you're going to meet this budget year on that, or do you think it'll be over?
I don't think they'll be over. I've always tried to stay within the budget that has always been given to me, and I intend to do so. And that's what we'll try to do. With respect to COVID, there's a lot of uncertainty, so I need some more guidance. If there's some ways that we can get more things, which the judge is saying that we can talk to Tommy Russell if he has those contacts, and we'd certainly be welcome to have the equipment to offset.
Okay, just one suggestion. I believe last meeting we had talked about special funds were available for COVID things. So it might be worth keeping a separate line item, and we might be able to through hand get that reimbursed through some federal money. So just a suggestion there, so it doesn't mess your budget up. But that's all I have, Judge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Squire Blackburn? Squire
Will,
Blackburn?
thank you for being here. Thanks for being here today, Will. I appreciate all you do. I know, as far as the paper's concerned, the mortality rate in Frankfurt for COVID, we've been very fortunate, but we may have had folks from out of town affected by being brought in. Has that affected your office?
Yes, it has.
So not only are you treating everyone that you may have come in like they have it, but also you actually do have cases coming in. And I appreciate that. I can't even begin to imagine the strain on you and your family when you know that that's what you're dealing with. You had mentioned earlier about a vehicle, and how old it was. And we've been working with the sheriff and other departments about vehicles. I know we're not in a budget time to talk about all these different vehicles that we want to buy, but I think it would be a good thing just to have it on the table to let us know your need. That way we can work towards it instead of and plan for it instead of just saying, hey, it's gone, we need a new one. How are we going to get the money? So I'm trying to make sure that we are planning moving forward instead of just fighting fires as they pop up. So I appreciate all you do, Will. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it too. Can I respond to that, please?
Yeah, please.
Absolutely.
Please, Will.
Okay.
We have bought you a new vehicle.
Squire Blackburn, I appreciate your concern. I appreciate that. It is difficult dealing with this every day on the front line. Being face-to-face contact with these people and their families. There's just no way around that in what we do. With respect to the current budget that I have submitted, I went back and forth on adding a vehicle to this budget. I just could not bring myself to do that this time with knowing what was going on. We do need a vehicle, but I cannot ask for it at this time. Again, we've got an older vehicle that we're having a lot of trouble with, but I appreciate that. I wanted to give you all a heads up that, this is something that we're going to need to look at in the near future as far as a vehicle. So I appreciate that. I wanted to be proactive. about this, and like I said, I just went back and forth about it, and I just couldn't actually add it to the budget, knowing with what's all's going on, but I appreciate everything that you all do and your support. So if anybody else has any questions,
Look, wait a minute. We've got Squire Sebastian. Hang on, we've got another one. Will, I've got another Squire. Before I get to Squire Sebastian, Will, when was the last time we bought you a vehicle? It seems like just a few years ago we bought you a vehicle.
It would have been in 2016.
Okay. So the 2004 model is not your only vehicle.
No, it is not.
Okay. All right. Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Will, and I appreciate your very thoughtful and kind comments on the passing of my father. I do have a question in regard to, we talked a little bit about office equipment, and Squire Muller was fantastic in bringing up that possibly adding a line item because, Ann, our top-notch grant writer, is out there working every day to pull in additional dollars for us to use, and usually is very successful in doing that. So I'm looking forward to the money that's going to come in for this. So hopefully that line item will kind of take care of itself. Outside of things like masks that could be used and gloves and other PPE, you had mentioned body bags. What other type of equipment is really kind of in that line item that would not be COVID-19 related? Just for clarification for me.
We have syringes that we have to use to draw toxicologies. We have evidence bags, things of that nature that we have to use in different applications. For an example, we're talking plastic bags that are sealable for loved ones' personal property to return. All that stuff has to be sanitized before it's returned back to a family. So, we're sanitizing cell phones that we're finding from car accidents, their personal property and those types of things. I hope that answers.
It does. That helps me quite a bit. And just one other question about your just general office supplies. I mean, I'm assuming those are, basic type of things like printer ink and that kind of stuff. Because as I look at and you can go ahead and let me know, because I'm assuming that is nothing that is atypical to any other office. Is that right? Pretty much standard office stuff?
Yes, pretty much standard office stuff, yes.
Okay. Well, in looking at expenditures for actual of 2020, it looks like you all have been very thrifty, which is a wonderful thing, especially in those two particular line items for office supplies and then office equipment. And if Ann is able to work her magic one more time for our county and bring in some additional dollars for COVID-19, hopefully, you should be able to share in that due to your frontline status. So I'm wondering if there's a way for us to look at those line items and maybe, pull, just kind of, I know we've been talking about a continuation budget, but I think we're all struggling with how we're going to maintain current levels of services with the money that we know we're not going to have. So I'm just wondering if we have the opportunity to reduce any line items, because those might be the ones to reduce, like $1,000 each or something in that regard, not to, because you all have been such great stewards, and I am so appreciative of that. So I don't know if that's something we can talk about, and if you say, look, right now we have cut and cut and cut over the years, and we're really at the bare bones, I understand that too.
Well, and I appreciate that, Squire Sebastian. Our budget is bare bones. I feel like there's nowhere that we can trim anymore. I've always tried to watch every penny out of every line item, and been thrifty with each one of them. I've never tried to, I don't want anyone to ever say that I've had to do many budget transfers for anything, and I just try to stay there. So, but as far as cutting anything, there's just no way. I just don't think there's any way that I can do that.
Okay, I appreciate the candor on that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Please raise your hand if you have another question for Will. Okay, seeing none, Will, thank you. We appreciate you working on a continuation budget with us, and that's great. And we bless you for what you're doing, and we hope that we can all get through this together sooner than later, as soon as possible anyway. So Will, thank you, and stay safe. Thank your employees, all the people that are working for you. We appreciate you. Go ahead.
We from the coroner's office want to say we hope you all stay safe as well and have good health. Anytime you need anything, if you got questions, just pick up the phone and call me. You all take care, and again, I appreciate the time today.
Thank you, Will. Mr. John Mitchell. John Mitchell, are you on the line? Susan, let's move to the road department's budget. John Mitchell.
I'm here.
Okay. Well, let Susan get to you. Susan, whenever you're ready.
Go ahead, John.
Well, there's two big things we did this time. We moved some money out of my budget back to the general fund, so that's going to show a reduction. Everything else is continuation, but there are two spots in there, my salt line item and maybe my phone, I think it was, that we could probably drop to some degree. I don't have an issue with taking the salt down at least 10,000. We can put that at 125. That would be fine. And the telephone, I think we can knock it down to 2,500.
Okay. Susan, do you want to add some comments?
I was just looking back in history that the phone looks weird because we had some sort of big reconciliation. Tamber may remember the situation, but there was some dispute or something with, or maybe it was an allocation or distribution of our expenses for the phone. Do you remember what the situation was?
There was, they had charged us for a line that was not active, and so they did owe us back pay on it, so that takes care of the difference there.
So yes, I agree, we can definitely take phone down to 2,500. Is that what we're suggesting, John? And then salt, what were you suggesting for salt, for your budget?
Put it at 125. I don't know what salt prices are going to be yet. They have postponed the salt auction till up in June. But I did cut it way back on my tonnage because we are overrunning with salt at the moment. So we have plenty on hand.
Okay, Susan, do you have any other questions for John before we go to the Squires?
I would like to investigate that.
I'd like to comment that on the reorganization of some of the expenses, what John was talking about is, number one, this reimbursable expense line has been for non-public school transport, and it's a program with the school system and Department of Transportation, and manages that, but it would be more appropriate to just pull that out into general fund, which we are going to do. It's really nothing related to road and department anymore. And then the solid waste litter program, again, it's morphed over the years. It started in the road department, but it's again more appropriate to be in the general fund. So both of those line items are being moved into the general fund to more accurately reflect the category of service that's being performed there.
Okay, John, I'm going to move to the Squires. Let's start with Squire Moore.
John, what road projects do you have planned this coming year?
Well, I only have the 600,000 in there because of the continuation, but I foresee a transfer coming possibly later on in the year. I've got the state discretionary fund, which is a big one. We're holding off on that until July 1 to do that, but that's the paving of the rest of Park Pike and Mills Lane. I've got the state reimbursed flex paving, which is I've submitted. I haven't got approval yet, but I have submitted 3 roads for that. Steelhouse Hollow, Royal Parkway, and Flags Fork. And the Goose Creek Bridge project is included in that. That probably won't start until July. And although all of those are reimbursable from the state. And I do have some bridge design wish list that I would like to try to squeeze in. I don't know whether it'd be possible, but I would like to get these designs on the shelf and ready as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Squire Tracy.
Thanks, Judge. A couple questions. First one for the treasurer. Isn't there a road cost allocation worksheet where we're able to use road fund money in the general fund for administrative costs, things of that nature?
To my knowledge, Franklin County has never used that formula. In some counties, the road fund actually is a revenue generator. But with the amount of, I guess based on the amount of county road aid that they receive and whatever other truck license distribution that they get and the staffing level that they have, that county road aid actually provides an excess that can be used for other funds and shows its transfers to other funds. We've never had that kind of organizational arrangement with our road department in Franklin County.
Right. Okay. And then my next question is for John. John, quick question. We had a legislative training day and met with several of the state leaders, and they touched on it, requirements that we're mandated to do as far as the county and the road department. One thing that we continue to see is money going down and just the needs for ditching and road maintenance. So my question, I guess, would be, do you have hard numbers on what it's costing the county in regards to tree limb and leaf removal?
Yeah, to some degree. I think when Amy puts all that in, it is timed out and billed out, on our program. We've got some rough numbers to that, because when it's all entered in, it is entered in with time and equipment.
Okay. Would you mind to share that with us when you get a chance, if you don't care?
Yeah, we'll get it together.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Squire Muller?
Hey, good morning, John, and thanks for presenting this morning. One question on this year would be, you mentioned salt, and obviously we didn't have a winter. Where did you end up with that? Did you have to buy it, stockpile it? Did they let you get out of the contract, or what happened with that?
No, I had to purchase my 70% requirement, and that's what we did, was got the 70%. We shoved it in as high as we could get it, and we're pretty full right now. We made it fit, so hopefully we won't need near as much, but not knowing the price of salt coming up, I think we need to stay in that range there.
Okay, so you did not have to build another structure like we had talked about, I think, at a committee meeting, is that correct?
That's correct. We finally got it pushed in to where we could make it fit, and it's all undercover at the moment.
Okay, thank you. One other question, and obviously we're not going to have the money that we had last year. That's going to be a problem. So, I'm a big proponent on, we're going to need to cut every department somehow, some way. Have you thought about that as far as, I know you moved some money around? I keep going back to 15% just because I know in my business world, we're probably going to take a 25%. I know there's some talk of relief from the federal thing, but I'm not going to count on that. Roughly 15% of your budget is $292,335. I mean, if push came to shove, have you thought about that as far as if we have to get it down a little bit more?
Yeah, and I don't know where it would come from. My biggest line item is that 600,000, and I said most of that is state reimbursed. So we have to front that money, and everything else comes out of my construction materials line item. That's the other side of what we do. The rest of it, the maintenance, and other than that, there's not a lot to cut there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they want to cut it, we can.
Okay, Tamara, do you have something you need to
Yes.
ask before we go to Squire Blackburn?
I want to go back to the road telephone line. You all talked about cutting that back. And if we do cut that back, it's going to cause some issues. We're looking at around probably $4,800 a year for AT&T club service, our plant board, utilities that go into that line. It looks like we don't need that much because of that huge refund that we received this fiscal year, but next fiscal year, we're gonna need that full amount.
So you're not gonna be able to cut it?
So we should not cut that line back.
Okay. Did you get that, Susan?
I'm working on getting a different setup through the plant board, because this phone line that we have here that we're paying $130 a month for is solely for the alarm system. So the plant board has informed me that there is a cellular communicator that we can install at a price of roughly $600 that would give us the opportunity to eliminate this phone line. So we are trying to get that figured out.
Okay.
Do you know how far out that will be, that project? And then also.
I don't know. we talked to them a month ago and kind of had things in the works, but all that's kind of at a standstill.
All right. Was your department included in the security grant that we applied for, that Ann took care of for, the departmental-wide cameras?
Yeah, I don't think we were in that.
Okay, okay.
Jeremy, do you have anything you want to say about that?
No, sir.
Okay. You know what he's talking about?
No, I wasn't involved in that.
Okay, we probably need to look at that all over for security. So Ann, if you would follow up with John on that, you're listening, Ann, I know, follow up with John about that. If there are ways to save money and do away with these lines, then we need to look at that as a probably too.
That security grant was perimeter fencing for the jail and cameras at Lakeview Park. It was Homeland Security. So that's already gone in, but I'll certainly keep watch out in case there's something else available.
All right, thank you, Ann. Squire Blackburn?
Yeah, John, thank you so much for coming in to present today. Really the questions I had, Magistrate Tracy and Mueller touched on, and so I don't have anything else to add, but I just want to say thank you. You all and your guys down there do a great job.
Squire Sebastian?
John, just appreciate all the work you guys are doing out to maintain the roads and do the ditching and cut the trees when they fall over the roads. I do have one question about the line item road equipment. What's typically in that line item? Just where it says road equipment. I mean, is it like a bucket to put on a backhoe if the teeth are bent and you can't rebend them back, or is it something like that, or tires, or?
No, it is, we did purchase a skid steer bucket out of there, year before last. Mostly smaller items, chainsaws, blowers, you know, the hand tools, a lot of that stuff comes out of that line item, and occasionally a snow plow, which I've actually got a deal working on a snow plow to finish that line item out, because one gets bent or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what basically all that's for.
Okay. And Squire Mueller touched on the salt, how you all were able to house that. I had that down, and I also had some questions about the limb pickup, but it sounds like we're gonna get more information, so I appreciate the forthcoming nature of that and look forward to talking to you more about it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are there any other questions for John concerning the road department budget?
Yes, sir, I have a question.
Okay.
John, how many days a week are y'all doing limbs? How many people is it taking to do that?
Right now, it's just 2 days a week, because we haven't started the drop-off service yet. And it seems like it's picked up quite a bit, which it usually does in the spring anyway, but seems like there's more people at home and they all have a pair of pruners and a chainsaw. So it's been pretty busy for the last couple of weeks. I see it slowing down some, but some days, you know, we can run two people and get it, and other days it takes 4. You just never know, depending on the call in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? John, thank you. Appreciate it. And we'll be back in touch, and keep being safe now. All right.
Yes, sir.
The next one is the next area is the jail. Jailer Bonner, are you on the line?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Susan, if everybody will turn to the jail budget, Jailer Bonner, you've come in and you've cut some. You want to start off, or does Susan, you want to say something first?
Ladies first.
Okay.
I was gonna say, Joe Bonner, take it away.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna say, Jailer Bonner, take it away.
Okay.
Well, I think, 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 I think,
All right,
The most difficult line item is medical services. I'm sure the jailer will touch on that. I'll just make a comment that even though we did a budget transfer a couple of meetings ago, there'll be another one before the year end. So maybe the lower population will give some relief in the coming year. Again, Jailer Bob is more familiar with that than I am. The other comment I'll make and just touch on that the technical support line item has there's a source of revenue from, I believe, from that the jailer receives, and then they set up the appropriation, the budget as technical support, and then it can get allocated out to other more specific line items as the need arises throughout the year. So there was when you look at the comparative budget, the budgeted number for 2020 has had some transfers out of it already this year. So it did start at 24, but it has had some transfers. And all of the budget figures that we're working with in our working document are the as amended, as transferred budget for 2020, which is what you also see in the reflections in the prior year. So enough of that, Jake.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate it. First of all, thank you, Court, for giving me the opportunity to speak. I appreciate the opportunity. My condolences go out to Squire Sebastian, and as Will Harris said, and I'm glad to have Marty back. With that being said, I'll get started. Can everybody hear me?
yeah,
Okay. I came to you about a month ago and presented a budget that was trying to get raises and trying to better the jail. And that budget was worked on prior to the virus and was presented new into the virus. After sitting back and looking just like everybody else's, we had to back up and look at it because we're gonna have some revenue loss. So as everyone else, we're okay with the continuation budget. We'll make means and do. And with my 21 budget, I went back and made some drastic cuts to try to help with the revenue loss. And just to be blunt, the rough times, we're going to do our part. I'm just going to go line by line on the items that I sent down. And if I move quickly, please stop me because I can't see you. I'm on the phone, okay? I'm going to start with federal prisoner pay. It looks like it's a 52% cut from 223,000 to 108,000. Before I go any further, these are educated guesses. We have no way of knowing, but what we're looking at, what we have right now. We hope that our estimates are high and we can come back and have more revenue than we thought we can have, but I'm sure things are going to come back to normal, but we just don't know when. Moving on to the next line items, medical transport has stayed the same. Jail operating pay has stayed the same.
excuse me, jailer, only go to the items that you're changing. It's no sense, just to speed it up if you would.
I am totally fine with that, Judge.
State housing.
The next big one is the state housing. We've projected 1.8 and in the year prior, and we're probably going to be closer to 1.4. And so that's where we're going to kind of stay at, and hopefully we can make that number better. The next one is DUI fees. With that being said, the prosecutors, the judges, the attorneys, the arresting agencies have done a great job to try to help us keep our numbers down, and that is greatly appreciated. So the arrestee numbers coming in the back door have dropped, and I don't know when that's going to go back up. So we dropped that one in half. Medical reimbursements, we dropped 50% from 1,000 to 500. Work release, went from 15 to 1,000. That's the same thing as the DUIs, where you got less arrestees. Bond fees went from 4 to 2,000. That's the same thing. We just don't know how many are going to be, how many new offenders we're going to have. Administrative booking fees, same philosophy. It's cut in half to 25,000. Per diem went from 35 to 15,000. Inmate medical co-pays dropped from 1,500. I'm sorry, co-pays, I got lost there. Inmate co-pays 15 to 500. And then we went back up to inmate co-pays is 5,000 to 2,500. I was highlighting and got lost, I apologize. The miscellaneous revenue, 50,000 to 25,000. And that's it in the revenue. It's a total of about 21% change in revenue. Like I said before, this is an educated guess. There's a lot of unknowns, and I hope that our numbers reflect better when we come back and look at this in 6 or 7 months, or whenever need be. But we will be aggressive to try to get the revenue up, but this is based on what we're looking at right now.
So Jailer Bonner, if you would, for the general public and everybody that's listening, the magistrates, why are you estimating almost a $600,000 loss in revenue from the jail?
Our current inmate population fluctuates week to week from about 40 to 45%. And a lot of that is state and federal inmates where the revenue comes from, sir.
Okay. All right. And that's because of the arrest and they're not moving people into the jails because of the COVID virus. Is that correct?
Well, yes, and also there's been a lot of releases of state inmates, and when the state inmate gets released, we lose revenue, and our state numbers are down, and I'm not sure when they're going to come back up, and we also have to be cautious of a second wave of COVID and how things are going to operate when we get back to what we thought was normal. So we're being over cautious here on the revenue. I understand that, but I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay. All right, let's move now to your appropriations and your cuts there.
Yes, sir. The first cut is the jailer's pay. It's just a difference in jailers. It's 6% different. The next line item is kind of, there's no raises there on the officer salaries. I understand the times we're in. I'm always for my deputies, and I want them to be successful, but at this time, I think we need to be, we need to be thankful that we have a job. The next one is the training incentive. It's 50% less, from 4,300 to 2,160. That's just in difference in jailers. Let's go down to maintenance. We cut it 6%, total $7,000 to 115. I don't have any major capital projects planned, and we're trying to. We've listened to the meetings and we've heard 15%. And we're trying to get there, but there's some things we can't cut. We have to feed them. We have to provide them medical. We have to clothe them. So it's tough to do. The contract housing, that House bill got full. You all asked me to watch that, but so basically I budgeted for one inmate to be housed in another county, which we had done for a while. And that went from 5,000 to 17,000, so that's a raise. But that's what it's going to cost to house that one inmate. If we get another inmate like that, then we'll have to revisit that line item at another time.
Wow.
The next one will be office supplies. We went 25% cut from 20%, 20,000 to 15,000. The one there is the inmate supplies and support. Again, that's a line item change for Susan. It's been broken up out of two different ones. Prisoner clothing and hygiene, because of the drop in the inmates, we dropped it 3,000, which is 20%, to 12,000. The next one is jail uniforms. We dropped it from 16,500 to 13,000, which is a 21% cut. We're going to try to utilize the uniforms we have. I'm very good about uniformity, and I've been in this business a long time, and I like my officers to look good. But at this time, I just want them to come to work and be safe. So, you know, if we have to change up uniforms a little bit and go something cheaper or make something else last throughout this year, that's what we're going to do. Printing and stationery forms went up a little bit. It's just the cost of stuff we have to have and paperwork. Communication equipment, we dropped 500 from 3,000 to 25. Food services, we dropped the $30,000 off. That's a 100% cut. Basically, we have tried to fix what we have. We had a griddle and some other stuff that needed to be replaced, and it still does, but we're going to try to get by and see if we can find a used one or something of that sort and use the money we have left over in this budget, which I'll speak on again here in just a minute. Furniture and fixtures, we dropped from 25,000 to 3,000. If we break some chairs or something, we're just going to have to fix them. Specialty equipment dropped 11,000 from 21 to 10, which is a 52% cut. The vehicle is a big one. I still need a vehicle. But I have spoken to the sheriff. I've tried to look outside the box a little bit. The sheriff advised me if he could possibly give me a leftover vehicle he has, he's going to do that. And I'm very grateful to the sheriff and the sheriff's department for that. We'll try to squeeze by with what we got, and if we have to, I'll turn my vehicle in the fleet and they can use it for transport. Community programs. This is the line item we spoke about of the commissary item, and it was $110,000, and I've moved it to $10,000. I'm going to try to keep the community programs going. It just may be a little less because of numbers of inmates until we get back. So it'll be a kind of a staged thing with smaller groups going out until we get inmates back. I'd like to have that a little bit of help on fuel and stuff like that, so that's what that $10,000 is. And the next one is registration and conference. We've cut it down to 5,100 from 6,000, and that may change a little bit too because they canceled the summer conference, so that will help us on this year's budget going out. And the next year's conferences, this is how we get a lot of our hours of training. We are working right now while, you know, we're almost full staff. We're down a few, but we're trying to get training started back up first of the month and get ahead of it. So we're not in August and September, later months trying to get our last hours of training in, so that I won't have to send as many to conference, if that makes sense. The payroll stuff, I'll turn that over to Susan, but all in all, I've dropped my proposed budget in spending $89,940. I'm doing the best I can. I know the revenue is bleak looking, and we're trying to do the best we can on the spending side of it. Lastly, but not least, I've been listening to your budget meetings, and I've heard you all, and I respect you protecting our taxpayers and money and our revenue loss. I have brought in my command staff, and normally at the end of the year, I've been advised they kind of stock up on some things they need to spend line item money. I have told them not to do that, that we need to be frugal on spending right now. All POs have to be approved by Lieutenant Smith, and we're watching every penny going out the door to make sure that we have to do it, and it's just not a need. One thing we did do COVID-wise that is kind of a big deal is we spend thousands of dollars a year in Clorox and cleaning supplies, and we purchased a Clorox maker. It was $450, and it makes about 5 gallons of bleach a day. I said Clorox, I'm not branding anybody, it's bleach. But it's a huge savings for cleaning supplies for us. So, and I'm sure that'll fit into the COVID stuff later, but I just kind of wanted to share that with you. I'm sure you got some questions, and I appreciate your time and letting me get through that. So, any questions?
Okay, we'll start
I can't
with,
see you, so.
okay, all right, we're gonna start with Squire Moore,
No, I'm good, Judge.
okay? Squire Tracy,
Morning, Joe.
Morning, sir.
Just a couple of things. Can you touch on and kind of compare the numbers of inmates that are currently housed in comparison to what you had at the beginning of the year?
I know the beginning of the year may be going back a little bit far for me, but I know early March, before this started, we were at capacity, and we're at about 40 to 42% drop right now. And that varies from weekends to the week, but it's about 40%.
So would you say, I think at one time, what was it, about 350, 340s, something there as far as capacity?
Well, I mean, that varies, but in early March, we were at 322. We are currently at 183.
Okay. Okay, so I guess with a significant decrease in both the current and future revenue line items, what cost-saving measures have you currently implemented to save money at the jail?
Well, I just like, we're trying not to spend money right now to finish out this budget. And then, I went through a list and not trying to spend, I'm trying to be very frugal on next year's budget or continuation budget and trying to save money. And then at the same time, I'm trying to be mindful that I want to go after revenue when I can.
Okay. What about food cost and things of that nature? I'm seeing that it's the same, and your inmates have dropped 40%.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
one area that you've looked at?
Yes, sir, I have looked at that, and what I didn't want to do is drop the food, and then when this COVID starts loosening up and we start getting the back door coming open a lot, I didn't want to not have enough. You're right, we are less inmates right now. Going forward, though, when this loosens up, I expect our numbers to go back up, and I have to feed them, so I would rather give you money back at the end of the year on the food than not have enough to feed them.
No, and I'm talking, like, again, current and future. Like I said, that's a significant number that, as far as the decrease in that. So I'm just kind of asking for my own information. You also touched on vehicles. How many vehicles does the jail currently have in its fleet?
I wasn't expecting that question, Squire Tracy. I just did that for Miss Polly and the mileage not too long ago. I'm thinking it's about 12, but don't quote me on that. I don't have the paperwork in front of me. I can get it for you.
And then my next question is, out of the fleet that you have, how many vehicles are currently used and driven home by staff after hours?
3 that I know of. There's the main on call for maintenance, drives a vehicle home. And I believe Canteen owns that vehicle. I drive one home and my chief deputy drives one home. We're on call 24/7.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Squire Muller?
Yeah, thank you, Jailer, for bringing this to us. Two questions. Talking about community services and things like that, recently the judge had to make the hard decision to let seasonal and part-time go. Has Charlie at the park reached out to you at all to see about inmates helping mow currently?
Prior to COVID, we talked about adding a crew out there, I believe. But here lately, we have not, because they're not allowed to go out and work right now. That's certainly a possibility if we have the numbers to do it, Squire.
Okay, thank you. And then one other thing, could you talk a little bit more about your line item about the technical support? Because that went up 9,000. Could you just go back over that for me, please, as far as what that includes?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Susan answer that because we talked about it this morning. It's 24,000 on mine. We had to move some money out of that in our previous time, so I'll let Susan answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Susan, you want to answer that?
Again, the jailer receives, I believe, Jake, help me out, is that through the phone contract?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That helps pay for our auditor and various other things, but it's in the phone contract.
Right. So that's an amount of commission or advancement or whatever you want to call it from the phone contract on the revenue side. And then they allocate a portion of that for the auditor, as they said, that really helps them even get the money. And then the remainder of that they use for whatever line item might need expenditure. And I think in this case, if I went back and looked, we transferred the appropriation from that general technical support to communication equipment it was to one of the capital expenditure, one of the 700 line items, either communication equipment or data processing equipment for computers or something along that line. So typically the transfer will come from this general contract services line item to one of the 700 style capital outlay line items that is more categorically correct. But they don't know that at the beginning on their budget side. They just have that money available to spend, and then it can be redistributed between the other line items. And again, the original budget was 24, so they had already used part of that to fund a need in another line item.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Jailer, one more question. You said currently the inmate population is at 183, and I believe you said in the previous presentation you're at full staff, and I know Rick Sparks kind of chimed in on this one last time. Have you been able to kind of save any hours or anything since you are down 40 to 45%? I know it fluctuates, but as far as personnel, have you been able to save anything there?
Yes, sir. Overtime is pretty much non-existent unless something, just for instance, if I have to send somebody to the hospital, that person sitting there would probably be on overtime. But since we're almost full staff, we're down a few right now. I haven't hired anybody in the last couple of weeks because I want to see which direction we're going here. But us being full staff minimizes overtime, and us being full staff has still helped us do community service projects. It's helping us get our training done early. And the jail's as clean as I think it's ever been. Because if I see somebody with something needs to be done, I tell them to grab some cleaning supplies and go clean. So I'm keeping them busy.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Squire Blackburn? Squire Blackburn?
Yeah. And my mic button disappeared. Anyway, Jailer, I really appreciate you going in with hard to curb expenses. I know the policies in place with this COVID have really hurt the population for your revenue for state and federal inmates. But it still looks like you're going to need about, well, 28% increase from the court. I know it's tough, but I'd just like to ask you to keep looking to see where you can save some money. And I think the Clorox or the chlorine machine was a wonderful idea. But anyway, I don't have any questions at this time.
Squire Sebastian?
Thank you, and Jay LeBron, thank you very much for your condolences. Truly appreciate it. I have a few questions. The medical line item, it seems like we've had to transfer funds out throughout the year to meet the need of the medical line item. And that's a pretty substantial line item already. How do we begin to address this need, hopefully with the population reducing, and we're not sure how long that's going to last. But have you put any thought into that medical line item?
Yes, ma'am. I know we had to move some money into it. It's our first full year of being 24/7 around the clock medical. I know it's expensive, but it does save lives. Right now, with us being down in numbers, our per diem, they charge us so much over 275 inmates. And our per diem of $1.15 per over. And right now, we're not having to deal with that. And hopefully that saves us the money down the road. And I'm trying to find ways, we're due to negotiate that contract, and I'm trying to find ways to lower that number. But we have to have it. So, yes, ma'am, I'm trying, and I hope we get there.
Can you talk a little bit about the maintenance line item? I know we have our energy proposal, and the jail has been one area that's been looked at. Do you foresee any reductions in expenses there due to the energy proposal that's on the table?
I sure hope so. I don't have any major plans of major things, but we're in a 33-year-old building, 34-year-old building. I haven't done the math lately, but things break on a daily basis, and we're going to fix what needs to be fixed. But I hope the ESG project gets back to work here before long. You know, it's kind of been put on hold here lately. So yes, to answer your question is I hope we can find some ways to save some money throughout that.
When they met with you, did they give you any kind of just general ideas about that?
I think we're still in the early stages of it. I got an email from Mr. Baker not too long ago wanting to start to do some scoping, and I'm not real ready to do that yet. But we have to get the pipe scoped before we go really any further. So we're still in the birth stages of that, I think.
Okay. Another thing that came before this court early on, and you noted medical is fairly new, was tablets, and those were introduced under Jailer Rogers, and we've got $25,000 in there. I mean, are they, with the inmate population being down, do you think we're going to hit this number with tablet use?
I'll refer to Susan, but I think that we're really close to that. And right now, there's no in-person visitation. GTL is the company, and our phone company too has both generously given free time to inmates during this no visitation time. But yes, I think we're going to hit $25,000 this year. So
Yes, We've received, over $30,000, so yes, the 25 is definitely a reasonable estimate.
I'm sorry, and going forward, based on what we've heard today, because, you know, no one has a crystal ball, no one knows how long we're going to be under a number of the restrictions we are as far as public gatherings, et cetera. So, you know, potentially the inmate population will remain the same, and there are definitely good reasons for that to be that way. So I'm just trying to look at how we project out for next year. If we think that's a safe target number, you know, I'll keep thinking about that as well. But so, do you both think that that's a safe target, 25K for 2021?
We only have this year to go on. This is the first year of the program, so we really don't have history except for the current year. And it seems like these types of devices are very popular regardless of the number of people that you have. So, Jake?
I think it'll be fine next year. I think we'll hit that number. I will also add it's been instrumental for visitation. It's been instrumental for not only just in-person to person visitation from family. It's been attorneys, and it's been instrumental in continuing some education while we can't really do it like we normally do. It's been a valuable tool. And I wasn't always 100% sold on the tablets, but it's been a great asset during this trying time. So I think we'll hit it. So we went over it. We've got more this year. So next year I think we'll be okay at that number.
Okay, thank you. You said when you had initially made a presentation to us back in March that you were fully staffed at that time, and you've made a couple of comments about not being fully staffed at this point. Where are we with staff?
I'm at 48 right now. I'm down 4, which is normally a common thing, but at the time when I presented back in March, we were full staff and had a waiting list. I still have applicants, but I'm just kind of holding off to see if we need them or not right this minute. I'm trying to save money. I don't want to pay overtime because that costs us more money. But if it looks like that I need to hire a couple to prevent overtime, then that's probably the smart way to go.
And at our last meeting, you talked about e-cigarettes and how the revenue for that is going to be impacted since there's an ordinance in place that has halted that. Have you and the staff thought about what other items are going to be brought to bear that are going to step into that place? And I'm sure it's not just one thing, but it's probably going to be several things about introducing out to bring some additional revenue back in due to the $9,000 a month, I think is what you had shared with us that was going to be lost over that.
Yes, ma'am. We have introduced a tobacco-less nicotine patch, and it seems to be selling very well. I said patch, I mean pouch. It seems to be selling pretty well, but you know it's fairly new, so let's see if the newness wears off. And we're also asking, we're asking the inmates to give us some ideas too. So we've come up with, they come up with some pretty good ideas, like they would like to have some card games or board games or something of that sort. We're discussing that. If it meets the safety and security measures, then we may look at that. So we're constantly looking at stuff we can do to up the revenue in the commissary because that helps out.
Okay. And I've got one other question, and it has to do with the printing and stationery forms line item. Did you guys at the last meeting talk about something that was going to be added in, that line item was going to bump up? I just seem to recall that. I just want to make sure I'm recalling it correctly.
If I recall correctly, Squire, the company that we use to print those, what that is body receipts, bond receipts. They have went up. They haven't had an increase in several years, they've told me. and they went up a little bit, on that end. So we're accruing that cost from the supplier.
Okay, let me double check and make sure that's what I got. Thumbing through a lot of paper here. Oh, one other question about the chlorine maker. Is that something that we could utilize for our other county departments that have to utilize some type of bleach? I mean, if you're able to produce that, maybe that is a way that we can, you know, in state government, you know, we would be a journal voucher transfer. I don't necessarily know what it's called in county government, but, you know, if you are working with another entity, a sister agency, to share resources, and they're calling, you know, they're using the bleach, you know, maybe you could set a price for that, and maybe the road department could be using it, or Lakeview Park, or others, depending on the volume that is needed. So I'm just trying to find a way that we can share resources across county government, and you know, save money as well. So I don't know if you all have had thoughts about that.
Great idea, Squire. I'll be glad to share with any county agency that wants it. Or I'm be glad, I got the idea from, we have a conference with Kentucky Jailers Association every week to gather ideas from other jailers across the state. And it was an idea from actually our Southern Health Partners rep presented it to KJA, and the company was very easy to work with and shipped it within a day or so. It's a little piece of equipment. It doesn't take up any space, and it's made in Kentucky. I'd be glad to share that with you all, and or I'd be glad if you need some bleach, let me know. We can bring a bucket up here and I'll get you some.
All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Jailer, Jeremy's sitting here in the same room with me, and I've already, and we've, he'll be talking with you about what we could use from you, and we appreciate that. And thank you for your innovative thoughts on trying to save money and getting a product that we need. Jailer, I want to thank you for your $90,000 cut. You're trying to do what you can to make a difference in the budget. We appreciate it, and I know these are adverse times, and God bless you. God bless your staff. Please stay safe and keep up the good work. We're so thankful of the good job you're doing. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, next area is the planning and zoning. Mr. Hewitt, if you'll come on, please, sir.
Good morning, Court.
Good morning. Almost noon.
I'll get Susan a moment to get it up on the screen.
Okay.
There we go. So the planning and zoning department is line item code 5070. Just a brief overview. This is a straight across the board continuation budget. I have discussed this with Susan, presented her with my year-end expenditure, and otherwise it's a pretty straightforward budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Let's, I'm sorry. I'll go down the line. Squire Moore.
No, Judge, I haven't even got to the page yet.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll hold up. Susan, do you have anything to say before we go to the magistrates?
Court, the expense budget worksheet is on the screen. We're talking about appropriations today, but this is one of the service areas that have general county government that has fees associated with it on the revenue side. And the year-to-date receipts for planning and zoning are at $180,000. We budgeted $90,000. So when we look at the revenue budget, you'll see that I have reflected an increase in the anticipated revenue. That is attributed to two things. We're handling the city electrical inspections, so we're handling a lot more money now on that side and taking that into account. And then there are several large projects that are being built out through the county electrical side, commercial projects that have significant receipts, and there's a receivable list that I get from planning and zoning for some of those projects that are outstanding. So I am making a leap on the revenue side, and also hopefully anticipating the court will adopt an updated, modernized fee schedule for the program to offset the service cost.
Okay. Squire Moore, you ready?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Squire Tracy.
Good morning, Robert. Thank you. Just a couple things. I know in the past you've touched on being covered up or a workload being excessive. Squire Muller asked if you were keeping a time log in regards to the projects that you're working on outside of the umbrella of county government. Example, Farmdale Sanitation District. Are you keeping a time log while you're being instructed to work on projects for them and like that?
No, I am not. I just roll it into the day-to-day business.
Okay. I know over the last several months that it was adamant that people pay their way. For example, the Conservation District. Personally, I would like to see a time log, and I'd like to see any and all work that you're doing, that you've been asked to do for Farmdale Sanitation. I would like to see that work, those hours be reimbursed. Not only for you, but for the grants coordinator, for the county attorney, whoever.
Well, let me chime in on that, Squire. That's new.
That's fine.
It'd been nice if we had this discussion prior to this, but we didn't. And so I'll elaborate on that. As Squire Sebastian and Squire Booth know, because they represent that district, that district doesn't have the monies to reimburse, and they're very thankful and appreciative to have Robert Hewitt and Ann Northcutt there to try to help them get money. So you're going to ask a district that is barely treading water and doesn't want to raise the rates on people to have to raise the rates on people because they can't afford to hire somebody to come in. I don't think that's fair. I wish we'd had an opportunity to talk about this, you and I, face to face, or you and I before we got here. But I'm adamant about not trying to get to sink Farmdale Sanitation because we're offering the help that they desperately need and cannot afford to have at this point in time. So that's my response to that, Squire. And I appreciate your opinion, Judge, but it's my understanding that the Farmdale Water Board tried to levy a fee on the sanitation district for collecting that money. Is that accurate? Well, 2 years ago, there was a fee, and it was there was a fee. It was reduced, and now the Water Board, because they're financially having issues like everybody else, they've asked for 50 cents more. So, and that's yes. Everybody's strapped for money, Squire, and I know that Peaks Mill is, and I know that you represent, and I know that Elkhorn Water is, who also you represent. So everybody is strapped for money, and it was discussed and agreed upon that 50 cents would be that amount to get to get back the monies. But still, there are the Farmdale Water District is not charging the same amount, is not getting charging the water district the same amount that they originally were initially. There's been a compromise and so a fee structure work out.
Okay. You touched on rates and things of that nature, and Farmdale Sanitation not having money. Has the rate stayed the same? It's my understanding rates have went up drastically in some areas.
The rates went up. They changed the rates from a flat fee to a usage fee. And in that usage fee, some went up, some went down. But I mean, that was in order to be able to provide the services that are needed in that area, i.e. the sewer lines, the sewer components. There has to be some type of maintenance of the facilities there, and they needed more money. They just couldn't flat out do it with the monies that were coming in. So they went to a usage fee. You know, this is really about the budget, so if you would like, and I would appreciate it if you would like, we'll get you in front of the board, we'll have you talk with them if you have issues, but this is really more in terms about budget. So if you could keep on the topic here, we'll go on.
I am, sir. Again, like I said, we're discussing the planning and zoning office, and obviously we've been told numerous times that they are stretched thin, that they can't answer every complaint that's called in. I think the word chicken coop was even stated. I can't check on every farm or every complaint, so forth. So obviously I understand where we're at. I just want to make sure that county business is being handled and not overlooked because they're being directed to go somewhere else and do something else. So obviously I'm keeping it about the budget. So Robert, my next question is, would it be accurate to say the joint electrical inspector is working the majority of his time in the city?
Yes.
I know Squire Blackburn has been adamant about getting information to him. I know he's asked several times over several months. Do you have any idea when that contract or information will be given to the court?
I can answer that. I've talked with Keith Parker. You know, Squire, and I said this, Squire Blackburn asked this before, I'll say this again. All of us are under a lot of pressure and issues that will come about. As you can see, the revenues are extremely high. They're twice what they were, and we get a portion of that revenue. The question that is in order, can we get more? And so the pertinent part of that would be that we want to make sure in the next year's budget that we'll get more revenues. Right now, Keith Parker has said we'll get to that when we can. So everybody's pretty busy. So I appreciate you just having a little patience. We'll get there.
Thank you.
Okay, Squire Muller.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Robert. Thank you for coming in and presenting on the phone. Just one or two questions for you. I guess my biggest thing is, when we go to training and stuff, they talk about different areas of government and how things are run. And I see your fees are up this year, which is outstanding. I'm sure it's plateaued because of the virus and stuff. From a business standpoint, look at everything, P&C's costing $438,950, and we're bringing in 90. The numbers aren't working out, as far as how we're doing it. So I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how we can do better or do different. Your office does a lot, as Squire Tracy was stating. But you did do a continuation budget, and I'm having a hard time with that just because of our current financial situation. So have you thought about, 15% would roughly be $65,000. Have you thought about what we can do to do better?
I've looked at the possibility of a 15% cut in this budget, and it would basically eliminate every line item except salaries. My inspectors and my staff have requirements for continuing education credits. We're required to purchase code books, inspection stickers and placards, and go to conferences, and these are the items that are listed in my budget. My revenues are actually up, and I think the treasurer mentioned that at the beginning. And I think she had originally projected 90,000. I believe she said they came in at 180. The fees for the Planning and Building Codes Department on the electrical side have not been amended for 20 years. Building fees need to be amended as well to incorporate inspections that we're performing that are required in the building code. There's been discussion in the past about adopting the fees established in the Kentucky Building Code. So I've had these conversations with the treasurer, and I believe that she supports those procedures. I believe my expenditures are as conservative and responsible as they can be. I believe it's important that we recognize the fact that we're providing the service, and perhaps we're not being compensated for the cost of doing that, providing that service. And I believe if the treasurer would like to elaborate on that, I would appreciate any comment she has.
The statute provides for the counties, for these types of services to recover its costs, and we're not utilizing that mechanism. We have very few mechanisms for raising funds on our own, and the ones that we have, we're not utilizing them to the fullest. And this is a prime example in the category of services that we're basically subsidizing with general tax funds, and that we could have clearly have a fee basis, and those that are utilizing the service for development to help repay and recover the costs that we're making.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Robert, I do remember us talking about that in some meetings. So do you think that's something we could set a meeting up? Maybe that's a question for the judge as far as to go ahead and move forward with bringing these fees up to 2020. Is that something we could go ahead and maybe plan on a video conference to go ahead and get rolling with that?
Squire, I'll chime in on that. We've had numerous talks about it, and you've been part of 90% of them. And the question is not, can we do this? Yes, we absolutely can. But the question is the will of the court to raise fees? 4 years ago, it took us 6 months to raise the business license from $10 to $40. And so the question is, and we've brought other calls to the court, and those have been turned down. So it'll be the will of the court. It takes 4 people to agree to raise the fees. And at this point in time, everybody we understand we're in a bad situation, but we're just trying to get a budget and to go into next year, and we'll look at, in my opinion, I don't want to implement any fees or any taxes or any increases until we get a comprehensive look of where we are. I'm looking at trying to get a budget for this coming year.
Okay, thank you, Judge. So I would just ask maybe the other magistrates to be thinking about that as far as helping our P&Z recoup fees. Robert, one other thing, during this COVID crisis, are your inspectors and everything, do we go all digital now? I'm just curious how that's working as far as them not being in the office.
Yes, they were thrust into the electronic age, and I'm so proud of how they were able to transition. Let's see, I have one electrical inspector and the building inspector are working directly from the tablets. The chief electrical inspector, I believe, we did upgrade his phone to a smartphone, but he is, I believe, still filling out paperwork based on the call-in inspection request. But they are all working mobilely, and then we are also receiving credit card payments, which has been extremely helpful. And we really appreciate, having that option because we're not taking cash anymore. So the inspection staff has done a great job, and I'm really proud of them. And this is hopefully it shows them that they can transition during difficult times. And I'd like to continue on and provide them additional equipment to make record keeping even easier for them out in the field.
No, I think that is huge, and a shout out to some of your staff that I worked with personally this week on obtaining a permit for a project, and Ben was great. John Mitchell chimed in on it. It was effortless, and then was able to call Leslie with the credit card, and it went very well. So that's all I have, Robert. Thank you.
Okay, Squire Blackburn?
Well, yes. Robert, thanks for coming and presenting today. I know you've got a tight budget with the things, your fees, the things you have to pay for. I agree with you about the fee schedule and what Susan had, our treasurer had said with adjusting those fees. Look, planning and zoning's job is to make sure that we have thoughtful, insightful planning, and it's carried out safely, effectively, and in the best interest of the county. And I think a lot of these people that are developing need to be able to pay for the fees that it takes for you guys to make sure all the inspections are done properly. I will say that after 7 months of asking about the shared inspector, the city manager did contact me yesterday. I think somebody urged him to because of these budget talks. And I know we're busier now than ever. That's why I tried to address it 7 months ago. But I've spoken with the city manager. He's got some ideas, and we'll talk with you more about that, Robert. But I'm glad to see the fees are up. We just got to keep moving in that direction. We can't have this being so costly on the county when it can cover itself. But anyway, I don't have any other questions than what's already been asked. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Squire Sebastian?
Thank you, Robert. Thanks for being with us, and I just want to offer condolences. I know it's been a few weeks about the passing of your mother. I know it is a very horrible time to lose a parent. I wanted to talk with you just a little bit about, there's a line item, the planning and zoning, the commission's contribution. Can we talk a little bit about how that actually happens, just to educate the court about the work that the staff does, and then what in turn is shared back, because this, the staff, the county staff, really staffs the work of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it seems like we did quite a bit of work. So can you give us just a little bit of education, you and or whomever else needs to chime in, just so we understand? We have so much budgeted for that. We've got a line item where $23,000 is budgeted for that, but we're only showing actual receipts just a hair north of $3,000. So looks to me like we either need to get closer to budgeting the actual, or we need to work with them so that additional funds flow from the work that is done. So with all that, if you could talk a little bit more about that, please.
Yes, thank you, Squire. I appreciate your comments, and my condolences to you for the passing of your father. It is very difficult to lose a parent. during this time. It's extremely difficult, so thank you very much. Prayers to you and your family. This line item pays for the county's 50% share of the cost for the service of the commission members. They are paid based on their attendance. I believe their current rate is $75 a meeting. Their bylaws require a minimum of 6 meetings per year. For the most part, they do meet 11 times a year. So all the costs associated with the planning commission and also the board of zoning adjustments in the county's case. So this includes both of those boards. We share those costs equally with the city. So it includes board membership payments, legal fees because they have their own attorney. It includes advertising costs, and it includes insurance, their liability insurance. So those are the things that we pay for. The reason that the expenses to date are only $3,375 is because the planning commission, or i.e. the city, since the city maintains their checking account for the commission, the city invoices the county at the end of the fiscal year. So what you usually see either in your last court meeting or your next to last court meeting, about 4 or 5 invoices from the planning commission on their letterhead for us to make payment. And actually, last year, first time ever, I had to do a budget transfer to that line item of $2,225. And I can't recall specifically what it was. It could have been the fact that we had so many meetings last year, and so the attendance was up. Because I think the insurance remained the same, but when meetings go up, attorney's fees go up, legal ads go up. So that's where that comes from. In terms of the activity of the county staff, and the same applies to the city staff, we serve as staff to those boards. We receive the applications for those boards, and based on the regulations adopted by the legislative bodies, either we act administratively based on those applications or we present those to the boards. We process the applications, we analyze it, we do technical reviews of them. In cases that go to the board, we prepare technical reports, prepare legal advertisements, adjacent property notifications, and all fees associated with those applications are submitted directly to the planning commission. Your staff, city, county staff, do not receive any funds from the commission for processing and analyzing these applications. All those fees go to the commission.
So my question hinges on that, and thank you for bringing that part out. So what happens with the funds that the planning commission has? I mean, why would the planning commission not be able to utilize the funds that it gets to pay for some of the things like the administrative work, the attorney, posting things in the newspaper, I mean, those type of things. So I'm just trying to ensure that we as the court fully understand the scope and the breadth of the expenses and the ebb and flow of the monies, how that works.
Yes, I believe the planning commission, they do pay for their own office supplies, they pay for their own continuing education training, and they pay for their own traffic engineer when they request or require that individual to perform services on their behalf. But it has been my idea throughout the years that, one last thing, any special consultants, whether it be for updates to the comprehensive plan or any other special studies that may occur. So that's where their funds go. I would like to entertain, and I've often mentioned about perhaps the local governments receiving a percentage of the fees just as a means to help offset, whether it be mailing cost or copying costs, things of that nature. Just a percentage of those fees would help more than what we're getting now, which is 0.
Thank you for making my point for me, because I'm not really sure who, holds the purse strings for those bodies that you mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Commission and the other entity. And I don't know if if accounts receivable stay with the city, if they have their own separate account or held by the county. I haven't noticed that anywhere. And then how those funds kind of ebb and flow to see if there is an opportunity for a portion, a percentage, to actually take care of some of the work that we are doing for them, because money goes out for other expenses. Like you said, if there are consultants, consultants would have to do the same. They'd have to write reports. They'd have to do analysis on things just like our staff is doing. So to be compensated for the work that we are undertaking, I think is something critical for our county, especially now. We've brought that up a couple of times. You know, where taxpayer dollars are unfortunately subsidizing these type of activities when monies are coming in for them. So I'm hopeful somebody hears my plea from the river today about that.
Yes, the planning commission / board of zoning adjustments have their own bank accounts, and then they write checks for bills out of that, and they do receive an audit every year, and they have their own budget committees. So I sit on the budget committee just as staff every year. I provide the draft budget to the county treasurer, and then also provide her with a copy of the audit. We're happy to forward that on to the magistrates. You all would like to see those figures.
Of course, I can only speak for me, but I'm in for looking at it. You know, I'd like to dive into the details here, because the details is where the meat of everything actually is, so that we could come up with, possibly if it's the will of the county, to move forward and have some conversations with these two boards about the amount and level of work that we do. And because they are paying other experts. I mean, I would assume they call you experts all the time. As the staff, they rely on them very heavily to do the work.
Yes, you are correct. They do hire a secretary to assist them, and then of course I mentioned their legal counsel, an auditing company, and then their traffic engineer. But otherwise, as it relates to day-to-day activities, the city and county planning staff are the heart and soul of those boards, and we process the work.
Okay, well, I'm hopeful everybody's got their listening ears on, because I think this is an important one to take up when we can. I also wanted to talk to you about, there's a line item in here for uniforms for planning and zoning. Has the staff ever utilized this line item?
Yes, we have. Judge Wells was the first judge executive to allow my department to have a uniform budget. Otherwise, prior to that, we all had to supply our own. Because we're on construction sites and in industrial properties, we're required certain protective gear, namely steel-toed boots, safety vest, hard hats. The other thing that Judge Wells and I thought was important is that we have a standardized look or uniform look, identifying us in the field as county employees. And so the judge had funded this line item so that we could get some apparel, shirts with county logos, and then also some coats, and then also for hats for protection from the sun, and so that we can be identified in the field, and then we look presentable and professional. So that's originally started out as $5,000, but since we've pretty well been fitted up, we were able to lower it down to $2,000. So what we use that for on a regular basis is for replacing the steel-toed boots, and then any shirts that may get torn or get paint on or something like that. So generally speaking, that that line item is for replacement of equipment.
Okay, I'm just not seeing any expenditures out of it this year, so I don't know. I think like we've had, the jailer was very upfront in saying what many of us who've worked in government know. When you see a lot of money left in a line item at the end of the year, you're kind of scrambling around to figure out how to make purchases out of that so that you maintain the line item. So I just wasn't sure if it was one that was there as a placeholder, for something that had occurred years ago, or something that was really, active now, actively being used to purchase items like that.
It is active, however, I am proposing not to spend any money out of that line item and turn all that back in at the end of the year. I believe that my staff can hold off a couple months. I don't think they're in desperate need for anything replaced at this moment. I've not heard, but I'd like to turn that money back in for this year.
Okay, thank you. That looks to be the questions I have at this point. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Thank you to Mel and Greg and Mike. They're out there in the field every day. They're doing a great job, as Squire Muller mentioned. He went through the process and it worked, and it's going well. And we are nicely, knocking on wood, we are still seeing people coming in with new projects and new buildings and new construction. So that's a positive. We're thrilled that that's happening, and hope that will continue and even start increasing as this starts getting back to a new normal. We're at 12 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and allow.
Judge, I've got a question for Robert or Susan.
Okay.
Before we move on. There's a lot of development in housing going on now at Westridge. Where does the $3,000 fee to the county, where does that go into our coffers?
I hand that over to Susan, if she can answer that.
We have a general fund revenue budget line item, sewer assessments. It was budgeted at $12,000 for 2020. We have taken in $18,000 for 2020.
Susan, doesn't that pay off part of that project that was several years ago that was in that area to put sewers in?
Yes, it's intended to be a recovery of the county's cost for the Chokeville sewer project.
Right. I just wondered where it went. Thank you.
Okay, all right, we're gonna move to maintenance, and then after that, we'll need to stop and we will we'll schedule another meeting. So Jeremy's here. Let's go to maintenance. And Jeremy, you want to say anything before we begin?
No, sir. But ALC has contacted me about a few changes they're wanting to make and some work that they're wanting to add that's caused two line items to increase. One of them is the maintenance for the courthouse, and they're wanting to get the whole building pressure washed, which is an increase of $12,000, which is will be reimbursed from AOC. And another one is they're wanting to change the elevator contract due to the company we have now. They've had some issues getting some repairs done due to some parts that, proprietary parts that they can't get. And a few months ago, the elevator was down for like 5 to 6 weeks. And they done everything they could to try to get the circuit board repaired, but they just couldn't do it. So I ended up having to call ThyssenKrupp in, which is who is the manufacturer of the elevator, to repair it. And so this is why they're asking to cancel the current contract and get a contract through ThyssenKrupp to service the elevators from here on out. But,
Jeremy, I just want to ask to clarify that, where are we finding that line item about the elevators?
it's supposed to be under contract services, the increase to that. It's not on there. It's a 25,
Increase under.
it's a
Yeah,
25,
Jeremy, how much is that supposed to be on the elevators?
2,500.
2,500, thank you. And we did discuss it, I just didn't capture it when we went back to a continuation budget. I will have to increase this one, contracted services by 2,500. Is that right, Jeremy?
Yes, ma'am. And that's also reimbursed from AOC too, to the county. Any questions?
Okay, let's start, Squire Moore,
No, I'm good.
Squire Tracy, Squire Tracy,
Just hang on a minute, it's froze up.
You just muted.
Squire Tracy,
I'm good, thank you.
okay. Squire Muller,
Thank you, Judge. Jeremy, one quick question. Oh, I got two questions. First one is, how is the new vehicle working out?
It's good.
Just here.
It's worked out good. Thank you all for that.
Perfect.
is that it?
He said he had two.
Okay. My next question is line item telephone. Phones, like every person, so it's Zen, about telephones, big,
What's wrong?
We can't hear him, we just need one end.
Squire Muller, can you read? We didn't hear you.
fees. That's something.
And, yeah, I think he was asking about the telephone line,
I
which
think
Jeremy
it's-
doesn't really monitor.
I think he said telephone, but
Is that
oh,
something we could look at as a county whole? Well, where,
wonder what you talking about wonder if he's talking about the West Main or something.
Okay, let's go. We're gonna come back to you, Squire Muller, in just a second. Let's go to Squire Tracy, and we'll come back with you, Squire Muller. Squire Tracy.
I think he's already answered.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry. We're at Squire Blackburn. Squire Blackburn. I apologize, Squire Tracy. Squire Blackburn.
I need to walk out in the hallway.
I can't hear you. No.
No.
We could hear Tamara.
The microphone ain't working.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, my light was on. Anyway, did you not hear anything I said?
No.
No, sir.
Okay. Jeremy, thanks for coming to present today. You guys are doing a great job. I know those air units out there at the fire stations are keeping you busy. But I see on the contracted services for the judicial center, I may not have caught all of what you were saying. I know you've got an increase with an elevator company, but we're about 14,000 extra in there. Is that accounted for, or and we just haven't spent it yet, or is it something we're going to foresee next year?
a big part of it is still to be spent, and part of it is I put in last year for a contract for air acuity. It's controls the air in the building, and I thought it was up last year, but it's actually due to be up this current year. So that's why that money wasn't spent for this year. But next year, the coming budget, I'm going to be using that money.
I see. Do most of these judicial center bills get reimbursed, Jeremy?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Squire Sebastian?
Jeremy, I'm just piggybacking off the question that Squire Blackman had. Because the one note I had to ask you about is, right now we've got 20,000 in that line item to be spent. We're right at just a little over 6,000, so I didn't know if there was some other major expenditure that we needed to make between now and the end of the year, and a contractor just couldn't come to take care of the work. So is that the case?
Well, we still have our elevator service contracts quarterly, and they still have to come out. And plus, the one contract that I was talking about is a $5,000 contract that I thought was up this year, but it ends up being, it's due next year. So that'd be a $5,000 difference there that we won't use. So we still got the bug contracts, the elevator contracts, Bluegrass Casco to still come out of that line item for the rest of the year.
Okay, so does that put us closer to the budgeted or the allocation that we have in there, the budgeted number of 20,000, or does that get us closer to 15 or 12, or just trying to figure it out in my head here?
It comes up to about
the contract we're talking about.
It comes up to about $15,000, not including the $5,000 contract that wasn't due.
So
okay, so that puts us closer to a number. That's the only thing. We were, so far under budget, and I just didn't know if there were expenses, because a lot of times people will hold bills and then get them toward the end of the year, or they'll have to pay them up front. So I didn't know which kind of cycle we were on, but you cleared that up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, if you will look at your calendars, because it's 10 after 12, we've gone for our 2 hours, and look at Thursday.
Judge?
Yes?
Judge, if I may, this is Rick. I've been waiting since 10 o'clock for my budget.
Well, it's past time, and we're going to put you on now, Rick, at our next meeting with the judges.
There are some issues that the court may want to address now, considering you've got 2 budget leases on for discussion at fiscal court this afternoon.
Okay.
One of which is contained in my budget line.
Okay. All right, if you want to go, are y'all okay to go on with one more? Thumbs up? Rick's budget? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, as you'll see from my budget, I didn't do anything regarding it. I wanted to point out one line item that's not staff related, and it includes the lease in the courthouse for the county attorney's space. And what concerned me was you're going to be asked this afternoon on in the regular session to vote on 2 subleases, 3 subleases actually. The VOCA funded sublease for the victim's advocate, the county attorney's space, and the Commonwealth attorney's space. And in that line item for the county attorney's budget line item, as you'll see, that includes a slight reduction of that office rent. That was based, if I recall correctly, on a redo of the bond that reduced some of the expenses attributable to that rented out non-judicial space. And everything else that I've got simply staff related, fuel note training, etc. We've kept that without accessing it. Although I realize that there's a lot of reasons why everybody else has to have training. My staff has to have training to keep their license, and the county doesn't provide for county-funded assistant county attorneys. Those are all state-funded. So we've been able to avoid access and utilizing that line item of $1,000. $10,000 is ongoing office equipment. And then the supplies, it's paperwork. So I don't have cars to cut. I don't have expenses to cut. It's simply staff money. And there's no increases for raises consistent with what everybody else has presented in their budget. So if you want to discuss my line items or any expenses derived there too, I appreciate the opportunity to do it.
Okay.
It's six lines is all I've got.
Okay, if you don't mind.
May I, Judge, if
Yes.
I may? This is Susan.
Yes.
First of all, regarding the space, we were just looking at the AOC line items with Jeremy under maintenance, and we didn't talk about it, but we're going to wrap in with when the county attorney was speaking. So you'll see that this is a new line item with a $40,000 budget. So this is a brand new line item for the Commonwealth Attorney space, and that's what the county attorney is referring to. So that's a $40,000 budget increase that's appearing here that we've not recognized before for that space. The other part of the rent is in the county attorney's office. For the county attorney is under the county attorney's budget, and then there's a rent line item. I won't skip to it just for confusion, but there was under the VOCA, we pay a rental amount. So basically, the Judicial Center is we get the operating costs on a quarterly basis in advance from AOC based on the formula that they have, and then based on a year-end audit recovery. So going forward for 2020, our AOC reimbursement for the operating costs is $373,300, and that'll be on the revenue side. And that is based on 100% or a court ratio of that space at the Judicial Center. But the county attorney is not considered part of AOC, so we have to pay for that space, and the VOCA is not considered part of AOC, so we have to pay for that space, and then now we've been notified, and I wasn't really fully versed on it. The county attorney may be able to help me out here that the Commonwealth attorney, we have to pay for that space in the Judicial Center as well, and we have not been. So it's a new line item.
We always should have been. That was funded from PAC, so we have to pay that from funds that the state pays to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office.
So Rick, when you said PAC was funding it, did PAC stop funding it?
Well, Judge, this
I'm sorry.
I'll point out that again on the revenue side, we've been receiving about $27,000 from PAC for the Commonwealth Attorney's space. So now the 47 minus the 40, so we'll have about a $13,000 deficit that we have to make up the difference for.
Okay.
So the state, it's a subsidy amount. It's not a full cost for the space.
Okay.
From PAC.
That's correct.
Okay. There's no subsidy for the county attorney though, right?
No.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, let's go to questions. Squire Moore?
I have a question, but the codification, let's clear that up. Rick, can you talk about the codification? Are we complete with that? Or was there ongoing service there?
I don't know where we went in terms of the payment. That is, if it was periodic as they went along. They got the first phase on under review, and they spread that out probably about the time the declaration of emergency was declared for all of us to review their first drafts. I don't know in terms of how it's paid out though. That would be Ann's to answer, but that was all grant money.
would say that that's gonna be a different number is what I'm pointing out. We just, need to clarify with your staff or clerk or whoever, if there is a annual fee associated with that going forward.
There was, but it was only a maintenance fee once it gets in. The codification amount on the original site was just to get the thing codified.
And Northcutt, can you, or if you're on the line, can you comment?
Yes, that codification grant is 100% grant, and the invoices come in at certain milestones. So I believe we've had 2 payments to that company that when they've achieved those milestones, and I believe when they sent out the draft for legal review, I believe we have approximately 6 months, and then we'll move on with the process. So I'll be able to take a look at, I'll get with Susan and take a look at what's been paid out, and that'll give us a better idea of what's remaining and kind of a timeline for when we think those other invoices will come through.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move on. I'm going to Squire Moore.
Judge, I'm okay on this. I never did hear back from Squire Miller about what he was talking about on the telephones with Jeremy.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. He left, and then I just see he's back. Okay, Squire Muller, let's go back to Jeremy's budget, and then we'll continue on. Squire Muller, can you ask the question about telephones with Jeremy?
Yes, sir. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Squire Moore. My comment was, it seems like most of the people presenting today have pretty big numbers on their telephone lines items. So my question was, can we look at that as a whole to figure out if there's a better way to do it? I know John said he was looking into it, so my question, I guess, to you in the court is, or whoever, what can we do? Just seems like there's a lot of money in telephone lines, so I was trying to figure out if we could do a better fiscal responsibility job with that line item.
And I can talk about that a little bit. We have cut that line quite a bit just by combining some of our phones over to the Black Fiber, the VoIP system that we put into place, but there's still a charge with running that system also. It's not just telephones, though it says 573 telephones. It can also include data lines, cable lines, fax lines. All of those have separate fees. And I think we've done a pretty good job consolidating and cutting out where we can. It includes mobile phones as well, any iPad services that we pay data for. So it is a lot more than just a simple telephone line. It actually covers a lot more. And probably a good thing that we could do to help you all to see what all is covered under the 573 line is to have an expense report run on those 573 lines so you can see actually what is built into it.
Okay, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Squire.
Let me piggyback on that. ESG is Squire Blackburn and Squire Tracy have been part of that committee, and they themselves have looked at our telephone lines and some other areas, and have come up with almost a $5,000 decrease on finding some lines that we were being charged for, but were inoperable throughout all the systems. So there have been some cuts and some changes, and we'll be looking for some more too. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Okay, thank you. We'll be with you in just a second. Squire Moore, let's talk about the county attorney's budget.
I'm good on the county attorney's budget, Judge. Thank you.
Okay, Squire Tracy.
I'm good, thank you.
Squire Muller.
I'm good, thank you for the brief.
Squire Blackburn?
I'm good as well. Thanks for being available, Rick, and for pointing out that other issue we're going to be addressing today in court.
Thank you.
Squire Sebastian?
You all, as you're going down the road, there's one more thing, and I won't delay it, but I'm gonna deal with Tommy. With Tommy, you all heard the presentation with the governor yesterday regarding opening businesses, public spaces, masks, PPEs, etc. I'm gonna be asking for some substantial support due to the number of people and the encounters that the county attorneys have in court and otherwise to ensure that we have appropriate masks, etc., so we can conduct in-person court hearings. If we do not, I can assure you two things. The safety and security of my staff is paramount. We've been very lucky to be able to do things remotely. We've adapted very well with video hearings, et cetera, but once they go to in-person, when you're looking at running dockets that average, sometimes as much as 500 cases per week, that's 500 separate encounters, and we're gonna need some support with the court. I know it's strange, I never thought I'd ever talk about personal protective equipment in litigation, but that's a massive amount of exposure that the court system's gonna encounter. And I haven't heard anyone talk about that from the state level or otherwise on how we're gonna be addressing in-person courts when we start again. So just know that's on the horizon, and we're all trying to ensure that the population, the citizens, law enforcement, et cetera, can all do their job and do it safely and securely.
Okay. Squire Sebastian?
Yes, thank you. Rick, I just have one question in regard to office equipment. Is there any kind of anticipated need that you all didn't feel, or some kind of like computer rotation that you have, like every year you cycle out a third of your computers, or you have to get a new server or something of that nature? Because I'm looking at the line item for office equipment, and about less than 20% has been spent. So it just wasn't sure if there was some purchase coming, or like I said, you had some kind of schedule set up where you cycled equipment in and out on a rotating routine basis.
We should have, ma'am, and frankly, that was failure of two parts. Number one, planning because of obsolescence, and secondly, we managed to patch over equipment as it's gone along. We just purchased a new server as part and parcel of what I anticipated the county was going to do, so I held off on that to the end. We are also able to draw on other resources such as supplies and equipment through the state. And remember, I said that all of the assistant county attorneys are state funded, not county funded. So they provide some funding per year, and we're getting ready to draw down on those. For those kind of equipment, paper, we've tried to get away from paper for a large amount. We all use, frankly, our personal equipment, pads and pods and laptops, et cetera, but we have had to make some replacements, and those will be cycling through, and we're trying to use the state resources, since mostly the assistant county attorneys, who are always willing to step in and do county business as well, are able to do their job, not only remotely, but in office. So we're always kind of juggling, but we don't have a planned rotation schedule. It's been primarily when money's available. We don't have the newest equipment. We don't have the newest whatevers. Not that we use an abacus, but I use my calculator on my phone as much as I use anything else. But I don't have the luxury of being able to anticipate that rotation because we simply don't have the budget. If you'll notice, ours as well as anyone across the state, county attorney budgets are staff-based. It's people, not equipment. We're rather cheap dates, as I refer to it. We do maintain a law library. We do maintain hard copies of documents and books. But in terms of rotating or needing massive servers, et cetera, it's simply not part of our practice protocol. So I don't anticipate that being an issue in the 2020 budget.
Okay, thank you. That's just what I was wondering, if there was something that we need to anticipate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And if you'll notice, historically, I've always kept that in there, but very rarely draw down on it, except for critical infrastructure replacement.
Okay, Court, if you would, thank you, County Attorney, Mr. Sparks.
Thank you all very much.
We'll be talking with
It's
you.
good to see you here today. too, by the way.
Okay.
Appreciate that. It's hard to be here, I can tell you.
I know, man.
If you would look at your calendar for Thursday, May 7th at 10 o'clock, a week from today, for continuation of our budgetary meeting. There will be the judge's budget, and then we'll recap all the other parts of the budget as determined by need. So 10 o'clock next Thursday for 2 hours, 10 to 12. Does anybody see that as a problem? Seeing that I don't see that, so everybody.
As long as we don't have a 5 o'clock that same day, Judge, I'm fine.
We don't. I got it. I hear you. Amen to that. So we're good on that. So 10 o'clock next Thursday, we will continue meeting on the budget. We have a 5 o'clock this afternoon, so we'll see all of you back at 5 o'clock. Thanks, everybody. And is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
And seconded by Squire Black. Thank you, by Squire Blackburn.
All in favor?
Give me a thumbs up if you're in favor of adjourning. Everybody? All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you at 5. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for watching.